Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a Dark Side. On August 5th, 2000, in a quiet community of Berks County, Pennsylvania, a man was murdered. What started as whispers of tension behind closed doors soon turned into a tangled investigation of a case of murder driven by drug abuse, family ties, and violence. It's the case of Chester Spayd, right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, your weekly true crime podcast telling you cases of relationships that turn to murder. I am your host, Kai, and today, let's start off the show just a little bit differently. This episode I'm telling you about, I actually did a bonus Kai rants on it back in May. It was a quick little Reddit case I found, and I read it off in the Patreon, and then I did tell them I was going to do a full episode on this because just what I read was crazy. So we're going to start off the show with me reading the Reddit post, and then we're going to get into the episode. So the Reddit post says, "My aunt and cousin are killers." And this came from a user 123lovex3. And if you're in our Patreon, you already heard this. I'm going to read it again just to refresh your memory. So the OP writes, "My family is messed up. So I don't talk about my aunt, who is disowned by my mom and I, who killed her fiancé with my cousin, her kid. From what I've read and heard, this is how it played out. I'm going to basically list it out in order of events. My aunt wanted her boyfriend gone for his money. My cousin, her son at the time, was drinking on drugs. She took money, waved it under his nose, and said about doing something for her. If you know any junkie, you know they will do anything for money. She had the brilliant idea to kill him in his sleep with an axe, Lizzie boarding it. She swung the first blow, then gave my cousin the axe. They switched turns swinging. They put the body in a rug, wrapped it up in a trunk. She, being the sick and twisted person that she was, she flipped the mattress over, made the bed, and slept in it. My cousin got a buddy of his to help him throw the body into a ravine. The body didn't fully go in, and they did this at night, so they didn't know. A woman found the body, reported it. Cops got my cousin first. Then he got a deal that if he testified against his mom, he would be a lesser amount. They both went to prison. My cousin got 30 to 60 years. He is getting out in a few years. My aunt got, I don't know how many years, but she has passed away about 2 years ago. The murder took place in 2000. They got convicted on 2003. The big kicker is my cousin had a son. After my cousin got sentenced, his son was murdered by the son's stepfather. Not only did he murder the little boy, he also SA'd him. The stepfather got 25 to 50 years. My family is messed up. I would go more into detail, but I'm on mobile and at work. If anyone knows of the people I'm talking about, feel free to talk about them in the comments." So that was the Reddit post that was posted about 10 months ago, and I did a bonus Kai rants on this post. So I actually want to go into the case, and then I want to hear y'all's take on this. But first, let's do the intro. Welcome, lambs. If you're new here and you don't know who this is, my name is Kai and I will be your host today. Go ahead and get comfortable, get some apple juice, listen to this episode, and if you like it, then go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any other episodes. If you are a returning lamb, thank you so much for your continued support. Before we begin, I want to say that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon, patreon.com/love and murder. Without the support of my exclusive lambs, I don't know if this show would be able to continue. And if you want to be an exclusive lamb, don't forget that you can sign up right now on Patreon, which also helps you subscribe to the show so you don't miss any episodes. You'll get intro-free episodes, commercial-free episodes. You'll get Kai rants, bonuses, extras. So if the case has pictures, court documents, videos of the trials, video of the investigation, you get all of that. And you'll be a sponsor of Love and Murder. Right now, November, we do have a half off sale going on for the entire month of November. So only for $5 a month, you will get everything. But this sale ends at the end of November. Patreon.com/love and murder. Take advantage of the sale while you can. In the meantime, though, grab your butts, grab your You already know. BJ's Apple Juice, murderandlove.com/BJ's to get your first year of grocery savings for only a $20 membership fee with my link. murderandlove.com/BJ's. And now let's get into some love and murder. Chester Leroy Spayd III was born and raised in Pennsylvania, spending much of his life in Berks County. Little is known about Chester's early life. I really searched, couldn't find anything about his early life, but by the time he reached adulthood, he had developed a history of drug abuse, particularly crack cocaine and alcohol. Chester was known to really continuously have a struggle with his drug addiction, and those who knew him said his behavior had become increasingly erratic, and he remained, quote, almost continuously under the influence of beer and crack cocaine. And according to family members, he often had problems with his mother's boyfriend, who was named Kenneth Long. Now, this case does take place on August 5th, 2000, and in the days leading up to August 5th, Chester reportedly spent time with his friends, and he was continuously, all of those days, he was continuously drinking and using drugs. At this point in time, his friends would describe him as increasingly agitated and increasingly unstable. Now, the evening of August 5th, Chester had met up with a friend. Well, they said acquaintance in the research, and I'm pretty sure the person wants to remain acquaintance. So he met up with an acquaintance whose name wasn't given in any of the reports, and he talked to this acquaintance about what was going on at home, how much he hated his mom's boyfriend, just stuff like that. All of this he was talking to this acquaintance about. As the evening went on, Chester's friend said he started making statements about Kenneth. Now, I did look for these statements because usually they're out there, and I do like telling you as many quotes as I can, but I couldn't find any statements. Even though he made these statements, and I'm guessing the statements were of a harmful nature, and even though there were witnesses about the statements, nobody took any action, nobody called the police, nobody took it seriously because they thought he was just, him talking. Especially since he was high, they thought he was just talking. They didn't think anything of it. By midnight, Chester Spayd had become top of the barrel. He was very high, he was very drunk, and he was very angry. And it was described that the cocaine and the alcohol were both working together to fuel his anger even more. Then in the early hours of August 5th, Chester went to his mom's house and confronted Kenneth. They had a heated argument, back and forth, when suddenly Chester got an axe that was just at his mom's house, and attacked Kenneth from behind. According to forensic reports, Kenneth was struck 3 times in the back of the head with the axe, resulting in severe trauma and then his death immediately thereafter. Once Kenneth was dead, Chester now had to figure out what he was going to do with the body. At this point, he called a friend to help him, and together they moved his body into their car. The 2 men then drove the body to a remote location where they left it with minimal attempts to cover it up. Then, within hours of the murder, Chester's mother, Phyllis Spayd, called 911 to report her boyfriend missing. "I don't know what happened, officer. He was here 1 second and gone the next, and he just never came home." When police arrived at the house, they initially treated this like a missing persons case, but after they spoke with more witnesses, and after they examined the house, they quickly thought that, we don't think this is a missing persons case. Investigators were able to collect evidence at the scene, which showed that there was a clear violent struggle, because they noticed bloodstains and disturbances in the area where Kenneth had been attacked. By that afternoon, detectives were already looking at Chester. Why were they looking at Chester? Because after they spoke with witnesses, which were friends and family, they did tell police about Chester's increasing erratic behavior, how angry he was, and how much he hated Kenneth. By August 7th, 2000, which was 2 days after the murder, Chester was brought in for questioning. He came in without incident, said he'll answer any questions, and he denied any knowledge or involvement of Kenneth's disappearance. However, police kept questioning him, kept pressing him, and then his story started to change and then not make sense. And eventually he just confessed, and he said that he was the one who hit Kenneth with the axe, and he's the one who disposed of the body. Quote, "I did it because I just couldn't stand him anymore. He was always there, always in the way." And it's like, dude, aren't you a grown man? Shouldn't you have your own place? This is your mom's place. He was in the way of what? You should be in your own place. So, of course, since he confessed, he was charged with criminal homicide, first-degree murder, aggravated assault, possession of an instrument of crime, abuse of a corpse, and recklessly endangering another person. On August 10th, he entered a plea of not guilty. It's like, you just confessed, dude. Why are you pleading? Why do people do that? Can somebody let me know in the comments below? If you just confessed and you go to plea, why do they plead not guilty? Is it something law-driven, like something that I'm missing? If you know, please let me know in the comments below. Because that move right there makes absolutely no sense to me. In early 2002, after nearly 2 years of legal proceedings and pre-trial motions and going back and forth and everything, finally his trial started. The prosecution's case centered on Chester's confession, the physical evidence that was found at the scene, which was, remember, the blood and the place just looking like there was a physical altercation, and the testimonies of the witnesses who had told investigators about how Chester was acting in the days leading up to the murder. Prosecutors said that Chester's actions were premeditated. This was their argument because they were saying, listen to what Chester was saying about Kenneth. In all these days that were leading up to the murder, look at the calculated manner in which he carried out the murder. And to top it off, even if he were to say that was an accident, look at how he disposed of the body. The defense, on the other hand, argued that Chester's actions were the result of a, quote, drug-fueled psychosis. Really? And that's your defense? It's because of the drugs, Your Honor? It's because he was doing something bad that was against the law anyway, which made him do something bad that was against the law. So please, let him out. What kind of defense is that? The defense claimed that he was not in control of his actions because of his impaired state, and his attorney said that his drug addiction and difficult relationship with Kenneth made a volatile situation that basically escalated, quote, beyond his control. Okay. Literally, he was doing drugs and drinking alcohol for an entire day. There are people, okay, and I'm sorry to say this, but there are people who are drunks and drug addicts that don't go out and murder people. So you know what else escalated beyond his control? Doing the drugs and drinking alcohol for an entire day. That escalated beyond his control. I wouldn't then use that as a defense for, well, Your Honor, he was really, really, really drunk. So he didn't have control over his body, so his arm took over and murdered this man. That's a really, really weak defense to me. And I guess the jury felt the same way as I did because the jury found him guilty of third-degree murder and all the other charges. On September 19th, 2022, the state also added a count of criminal conspiracy to commit murder in the third degree. On that same date, Chester entered an open guilty plea to third-degree murder, criminal conspiracy to commit murder, and abuse of a corpse. He also agreed to testify against his mother. In exchange for his testimony and his written statement implicating his mother as a co-conspirator and, quote, the mastermind of the murder, a plea deal went through where the state withdrew its request for the death penalty. So they were like, looky here. All right. So you were found guilty of all these things. Now we know you didn't do it alone because, frankly, you could barely stand. So we have evidence that your mom helped, but we don't have enough evidence that we can charge her. But are you following me here so far? If you were to, say flip on her, we'll take the death penalty off the table. That's the best we could do. And Chester took the plea. Chester then said, quote, "She knew what I was going to do, but she didn't stop me." He said after his mother repeatedly demanded that he do something to Kenneth, that's when he hit Kenneth in the back of the head 3 times with the axe. His mother then took money out of Kenneth's pants and gave Chester some of the money. That's diabolical. Diabolical. Then Chester, with the assistance of his friend Daryl Prater, moved Kenneth's body into the car while his mother blocked them from view. So they're sitting here trying to drag a dead body, and the mother's like, "Nothing to see here, nothing to see here, nothing to see here, nothing to see here." That's crazy. So first, after he has an axe to his head 3 times, this woman then digs in his pocket and takes out his money and then splits it with her son. Then while her son and his friend are dragging this dead body to their car, she's blocking everybody's view so they don't see the dead body. Which, frankly, how do you do that? How is she able to block people's view? I can't see that in my head. Chester then continued saying that he drove the body to a deserted location and left it on the side of the road. On October 23rd, 2002, Chester was sentenced to 20 to 40 years in prison for the third-degree murder count, 10 to 20 years for the criminal conspiracy to be served consecutive to the murder, and 3 to 24 months on the abuse of a corpse count. So he ended up getting an aggregate term of 30 to 60 years in prison. When delivering the sentence, the judge said, quote, "The evidence of this act, particularly in the context of family, is something that this court finds deeply disturbing." Following this, Chester filed an appeal for a motion of reconsideration of his sentence. And it's like, dude, they took the death penalty off of the table. You confessed and you said your mom helped. What are you asking? You got the death penalty off. What are you asking for? So he's asking them to reconsider his sentence, I guess, make it shorter. Dude, you cleave somebody in the head 3 times with an axe. You want a shorter sentence? Which, not to be funny, but if you're taking off death penalty, then I think your prison stay is already shorter. So even though the judge denied this, Chester kept trying to appeal, arguing that his sentence was excessive given his impaired mental state at the time of the crime. Dude, you did not have a mental health issue. You were doing drugs and alcohol. You were the one chugging the alcohol. It was your hand putting it to your mouth. You were the one who did whatever you do with drugs and took them. What are you talking about, sir? Give me less time due to the bad choices I made? So with each appeal that he put through, each appeal was denied. The judge ruled that the evidence against Chester was overwhelming and that his sentence was justified given the severity of the crime. Which, he cleaved a guy in the back of the head 3 times with an axe. I would call that a pretty severe crime. And then you rolled the body up in a rug, put it in a car, and then dumped it somewhere. What are you talking about? So here are some of his appeals. In 2002, he did a direct appeal that was right after his sentencing, and that's when he contested the severity of his sentence. So that was December 6, 2002, and August 12, 2003, the judge said no. Then in 2004, September 15, 2004, he submitted a pro se PCRA petition saying that his sentence was too excessive. On February 22nd, 2005, the PCRA court dismissed the petition and said that his claims lacked merit. So, in other words, no. Then on June 20th, 2006, he filed another pro se PCRA petition. This time he said he didn't have effective assistance in counsel. He said that his attorney has coerced him with the threat of death penalty instead of exploring other defenses, including exploring his psychological state. He also invoked the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Blakely versus Washington. I know what's going on here. This dude is just sitting in prison, reading law books, trying to figure out how he's going to get out. That's what's going on. So he cited Blakely v. Washington, a case from 2004, to support his claims. The PCRA court dismissed this petition on August 9th, 2006, and then the Pennsylvania Superior Court affirmed this dismissal on August 6, 2007, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court denied any further review about this appeal. And then on November 29, 2007, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court denied any further review on this appeal. So they basically shut it down. Shut up, go sit down. That's basically what they said. Then on December 17th, 2007, Chester filed a pro se petition for a writ of habeas corpus in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. He once again said that he did not have effective counsel, and he said that there are claims of newly discovered evidence that, I've never seen, so I'll be my own counsel, because if you have yourself as an attorney, then, you make an ass of yourself. I think that's what the saying says. You have a fool for a client. That's what it is. If you have yourself as an attorney, then you have yourself a fool for a client. So he came forward with, there's too many claims of newly gathered evidence. That didn't work? No? Well, okay. Ineffective counsel, Your Honor. That didn't work. Oh, that didn't work either. Okay. And he's just flipping through the Rolex of excuses. So anyway, on June 4th, 2008, the court dismissed this petition, saying that it was filed beyond the 1-year statute of limitations established by the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act. Excuse me, what? I mean, I guess it has something to do with the Death Penalty Act, but what is anti-terrorism is in there for? Okay. So anyways, as you can see, he filed 4 appeals and all 4 of them got a big fat no. In one denial, the judge actually wrote, quote, "The calculated nature of Mr. Spayd's actions, combined with his failure to show genuine remorse, does not support a reduction in sentence." Then, in a final statement released by Kenneth Long's family, his sister said, quote, "We may never understand why this happened, but we know Kenny deserved better. He was a good man and he didn't deserve to die like this." But that's not the end of the case. In the early hours of July 27, 2003, once again, tragedy happened in the Spayd household, this time in Reading, Pennsylvania, where 3-year-old William Edward Spayd, who people called him Hoover, Widow Hoover, was found unresponsive in his home. 911 was called, and despite first responders doing their resuscitation efforts, he was pronounced dead upon arrival. The initial cause of death was unclear, but police were still investigating. Mind you, this is Chester's son, by the way. So what happened was that on the 9th of July 26, 2003, William, or Hoover, was under the care of his stepfather, David Charles Cummings, while his mother, Holly Cummings, was at work. According to David, around 10 p.m., his biological son allegedly pushed William down a flight of stairs. He then claimed he heard a scream and ran over and got there just in time to catch him as he fell. Did you see that? Did anybody see that? Was that caught on video? Because did you see how I ran from clear across the house in time to catch William as he was about to hit the floor? You believe the story, right? I'm just asking. This is what I'm seeing in my head. You're trying to tell me you were in a different part of the house. Your son, this is Sparta! His stepbrother down a flight of stairs, and you got there just in time to catch him? I don't know if anybody else is buying it, but I can't see it. I'm not buying it. He then said after that, William was restless and he just wouldn't stay in bed. And he said, you could check the text message that I actually sent to Holly at 1:30 a.m. I told her this fact. Then he said by 4 a.m. he heard a choking noise and went to investigate, and he found William lying in a puddle of his own throw up, and he was unresponsive. And that's when he called 911. So while they're questioning him, of course, they sent the body for autopsy, and the autopsy didn't show the same thing that David was reporting. The autopsy actually showed that William had suffered extensive injuries, including numerous bruises and abrasions to his head, face, neck, chest, back, abdomen, pelvis, and the lower part of his body. They also saw that significant abdominal trauma was the cause of death. In addition to all of that, evidence of sexual assault was discovered with rectal trauma and the presence of spermatoza on the boy's genitals. This was a 3-year-old, I'm trying not to throw up, seriously. This was a 3-year-old. And I think that's why he used the stair as a cover, because he was like, with all these bruises, the only thing that could happen, he could have rolled down the stairs. How do you explain the rectal trauma and the sperm, David? Did the stairs do something to him on the way down? Like, how would you explain this? And falling downstairs, contrary to your belief, since I guess you only saw people falling downstairs on TV, wouldn't have caused this much trauma to his body. Let's just take the sexual assault off the table. Falling downstairs wouldn't have caused this much trauma to his body. And why was there such a focus on his abdominal area? What, did he fall down the stairs and bump down like 20 stairs on his stomach and then he started rolling and everything else happened? Is that the story that you're trying to go with? However, and this part is going to piss you off, despite the compelling evidence, meaning basically you saw that he wasn't kicked down any flight of stairs. Basically you saw that he was sexually assaulted. Basically you knew exactly who did it because he was home alone with this person. The case ended up being unresolved for a decade, primarily due to gaps in forensic evidence and the initial investigative challenges. Basically, when William died in 2003, the available evidence, particularly forensic details around the nature of his injuries, the technology and methods for DNA analysis and trauma pattern recognition were still in the development stage. So this ended up delaying definitive conclusions. On top of all of that, David kept giving inconsistent statements. For years, he maintained that William's injuries were accidental, saying that he would fall down the stairs, saying that he would bump into tables, just routine childhood accidents. And if it was routine childhood accidents, sir, many children would display it and medical professionals wouldn't say this is something of a concern because they'd be like, well, all children look like this because they have routine childhood accidents. That's what routine means. It means it happens all the time. But this doesn't happen all the time. For a child to have that many bruises, what do you think would have happened for him to... The cause of death was significant abdominal trauma, meaning somebody kicked or punched him continuously in his stomach, in his abdomen area. How are you blaming that on routine childhood accidents? And how are we gobbling this up and acting like, okay, well, you know, he's kind of diverting suspicions from him with this information. Like, I mean, I guess the only thing I could understand is that there's no DNA analysis technology right now. So you can't 100% prove it was David. That's it. But to say that his inconsistent statements also hampered the investigation is bullshit. Then around 2015, forensic advancements in DNA technology led to the re-examination of the case. And it proved that the DNA of the spermatozoa belonged to David. Nobody's shocked, by the way. So on May 11th, 2015, that final forensic report was issued. And William's death was ruled as a homicide resulting from abusive beating and sexual assault by an adult. In July 2015, during another police interview, David finally changed his story because he was sticking with the stair story this whole time. And he admitted that he was asleep when William woke him up by poking him. In response, he said he punched the child in the head, causing him to hit a dresser. Then he rolled over and went back to sleep. He said later he heard William vomiting in the bathroom, but he didn't go check on him immediately. And when he finally did go check on him, he found the boy cold and unresponsive. He then confessed that he lied to Holly during his calls to her and also said she wasn't aware of his actions. However, even this, I believe, is a freaking lie because where did the rectal trauma come from? And the sperm? And the abdominal bleeding that was the cause of his death, you said you punched him in the head. As horrible as that is, yes, but everything else shows that it was consistent abuse. So even that was a lie. On September 17th, 2015, David, who was actually already in jail on unrelated charges, he was actually serving a prison sentence for burglary and arson from 2004. This dude was already in jail since 2004. July 2003 is when this murder happened. By 2004, he was already in jail for arson and burglary. What the frick? Wow. So anyway, since he was in jail in September 2015, they added on the charges of first-degree murder, third-degree murder, aggravated assault, rape, involuntary deviate sexual intercourse, and endangering the welfare of a child. They literally threw the kitchen at him, including the sink. On May 27th, 2016, he pled guilty to third-degree murder and was sentenced to 15 to 40 years in prison. That's it. But I mean, well, being that he was already in jail, this sentence made sure that he wouldn't even be eligible for parole until he's 83. So, I mean, you take the little crumbs that you're thrown. So he's still in jail basically for life. But, you know, and I guess maybe he was trying to keep that to himself because you know what they do to people who are child molesters and RAs in prison. So maybe that's why he was lying about it, in addition to saving his own skin because he didn't want to be in prison till he was 83. But now that they found out, dude, you did that to a 3-year-old? Don't drop the soap. One neighbor in their community said, quote, "It's heartbreaking to think that someone entrusted with a child's care could commit such heinous acts." Definitely. And that is the case of Chester Spayd. He murdered his mom's boyfriend, and he's in prison. Oh, I think I forgot to tell you, she's in prison because even finding that information about her, for some reason, everything was Chester, Chester, Chester. It wasn't really saying much about Phyllis. So I probably forgot to tell you that because that's something that I found out after the fact. So she's in prison with the same sentence as Chester, 30 to 60 years. And part of the thing that came out while he was testifying against her was that she paid him $100 to commit this murder. Again, that was not something that was readily available. I know I usually tell everything in chronological order, but I literally found this after I put everything together, and I was trying to do a deep dive because I was like, there's no way that Phyllis didn't get anything. And I really wanted that answer. So yeah, I found it after. But anyways, we got the answer. So she paid him $100 to commit the murder. And, you know, like I said, she helped him and helped them move the body and everything like this. And then she took money from the dude's pocket. I guess that's where she gave him the $100. But she's in jail. And then on top of that, his son was murdered at 3 years old, abused and murdered. And the guy who was with his son's mother obviously is a felon, and he's in jail too. This entire thing is insanely just crazy. And it all started from a Reddit post where I had to find out who this person's family was, and then I had to do a deep dive on it. What do y'all think about this case, and had you heard about this case before? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And that is all I have for you today. Fun fact, I was recording this really early in the morning, like 2 a.m., and I started falling asleep in the middle of recording and then ended up finishing this recording the next day. Just a little fun fact. Don't forget about our November sale going on in our Patreon, where you'll get bonus episodes, bonus everything. Like I just did an October dump of stuff that I did in October, which was, I had pictures. Well, I made a video. It was like Comic-Con. I went to this zoo. We got to feed giraffes. So all of that is on video for you to see. And that's in my Patreon. I did promise my Patreon subs that I was going to try and document more of my life and the stuff that I do. So I'm trying to do that. The stuff that I do in November, I'm going to do a November dump, etc., etc. Plus, we're playing games in there. You have bonus episode. You have case extras. You get all of this with the November sale for just $5 a month donation. So now's the time. If you wanted to join our Patreon, now's the time to do it. Sale ends the end of November, but as long as you come in now and you stay an exclusive lamb, you are grandfathered in at that price. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. I would love to see you over there. Your continued support would be very helpful to Love and Murder, and you would be a sponsor of Love and Murder. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. Another way that you could help out Love and Murder, which is free and easy, is by simply sharing this episode. Share with everyone you know and everyone you don't. So go ahead and just hit the share icon on whatever platform you're on. Share it in your text messages. Share it in your WhatsApps to your friends and family. And you can go ahead and visit our social media. So you can go to Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube, find the clip, and share it to your social media. Share with everyone you know and everyone you don't. And that is all I have for you today. And how we end each episode is that I remind you that it's, say it with me now, all love and no murder. See you in the next episode. Bye.